Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden announces he plans to visit Kenosha, Wisconsin tomorrow. The trip will mark the former vice president's first visit to the battleground state this year. President Donald Trump visited Kenosha yesterday. He promised more federal resources for police and small businesses destroyed in the riots. That followed the police shooting of Jacob Blake. The president blamed, quote, domestic terror for the violence in the community that has caused an estimated $2 million in damage. Let's check in with Philip Crowler, international affiliate reporter for the Associated Press. Philip, welcome back. Now, I want to talk to you about Joe Biden's expected visit in just a moment, but first, let's start with President Trump's visit yesterday. You're there in Kenosha right now, where city and state officials discouraged the president from coming. What's the mood like there?
Well, the truth is that this is a city that's a little bit tired of being the center of attention, not just the visit from one candidate yesterday, but with the former Vice President Joe Biden coming tomorrow. This is not necessarily what people want here, generally speaking. You can see the scene behind me. This is still something that shocks the inhabitants of Kenosha who haven't seen these scenes of destruction yet. 30 buildings altogether were burned to the ground during the 3 first nights of rioting. There are still people from the city itself and from the surrounding county who come here to see this for themselves and can't quite believe what happened here. As for the president's visit, he probably will be happy with what he saw. Supporters were out in the street to greet the motorcade, though there was no direct contact between the president and his supporters, maybe because actually in this city of Kenosha there were plenty of opponents of his and protesters among those crowds, something that we actually see relatively rarely when the president is out on the road. He tends to go only to places that are very favorable to him. That is not the case here in the city of Kenosha, so he was faced with quite a few boos at the same time that he might have heard a bit of cheering.
And Philip, we're learning today that the Trump 2020 campaign is launching new television ads in Wisconsin. What specifically do they focus on?
Well, essentially what they do is they try to link the former vice president and Democratic nominee with the riots that happened not only here in Kenosha last week, but also in the likes of Minneapolis after the death of George Floyd. Of course, there is no clear connection between the two, but the criticism from the Trump campaign is that the far left, if you will, of the Democratic Party and the former vice president have not done enough to stop or to discourage, rather, protesters who turned into rioters in a place like Kenosha. Now, what we are seeing, though, because you mentioned that this was an ad buy in Wisconsin, there is one also happening in Minnesota at the very same time. These are early voting states. These are also states that the Trump campaign believes are absolutely key to potentially winning in November. Now, Minnesota doesn't tend to go for a Republican, but Wisconsin, you might remember, you will remember, of course, went by a very small margin for Donald Trump in 2016. He wants to make sure of that and is getting those ads out as quickly as possible. What we're seeing here is a campaign really ratcheting up here. The visit from the president wasn't a campaign visit officially yesterday. Biden's is, but they look so different to what you'd usually expect from a presidential election campaign. There are no big crowds. They're not speaking to particularly big crowds. All of this, of course, because of the coronavirus outbreak. Things just feel very different this time around.
Well, they certainly do for all of us. Philip Crowther, international affiliate reporter for the Associated Press, thank you.